The title for today is Sometimes You Can Love Someone Quietly Without Needing Them to Stay. Perhaps letting them go is enough to continue loving them. And it is written by PROSNKONS. अनि since मेरो मोबाइलको चाहिँ माइक प्रब्लम छ त्यसैले this time I'm trying with an earphone so that audio comes clear. अनि so here it goes. Sometimes you can love someone quietly without needing them to stay. I think that's one of the hardest thing I have ever had to learn. We always think love means keeping someone, talking to them every day, growing older together, waking up knowing they will still be there tomorrow. We think love is measured by how long someone stays in our life, but I don't think that's true anymore. I think there are people you will just love as deeply even after they have become someone you can no longer reach. Maybe love isn't always about staying. Maybe sometimes it's about quietly letting someone become a beautiful memory while still wishing them the kind of happiness you once wished you could be part of. I've been quietly yearning for someone I met almost a year ago. It's a strange saying that out loud because if someone asked me where we met, I would have to tell them it was just on Hello Talk, nothing romantic, honestly. I downloaded the app because I was bored and wanted someone to talk to for a while. I wasn't looking for a relationship, and I definitely wasn't expecting to meet someone who would completely change the way I looked at life. I thought she would be another conversation that would disappear after a few days, another person I would eventually forget the name of. Instead, she became someone I still think about months after we've stopped talking. It's funny how life does that. The people you're looking for rarely becomes the one who stay, while the people you never expected somehow leave the deepest mark. We started talking almost every day. One conversation somehow turned into another until talking to her became one of the most natural parts of my daily routine. We would exchange random thoughts in the middle of the day, stay awake talking at nights, and somehow we would always find something new to talk about. I never had to force conversation with her. They just happened. We would talk about things we liked, the things we can't stand, politics, life, dreams, music, books, people, the future, and even the smallest thing that probably wouldn't matter to anyone else. I love that about us. There was never this pressure to impress each other. We were just talking, and somehow those conversations became the part of my days. What I admired the most wasn't even how similar we were, although we had so many similarities that it honestly surprised me. It was the way she thought. I loved listening to her explain things. I loved hearing her opinion, even when I disagreed with them. She had this way of making me question things I've never even questioned before. She would say something so simple, yet I would spend hours thinking about it after our conversation ended. Without realizing it, she slowly changed parts of me. She made me more open minded. She made me see perspective I would have ignored before. She challenged my belief without ever doing so, without ever trying to. I don't think she will ever realize how much she shaped the person I've become. Maybe parts of that admiration came from the fact that she was older than me. Not by a lot, but enough for me to notice it in a way that she thought, the way she carried herself, and the way she looked at life. Sometimes it felt like she was already a few chapters ahead while I was still figuring out how to write mine. I never saw that as something that made us different in a bad way. If anything, it made me admire her even more. She made me want to grow, not because I wanted to become someone else, but because I wanted to understand the world with the same kind of curiosity and maturity she had. I had already gone through a breakup months before I met her, and by then I had convinced myself that I had already experienced the deepest love I would ever be capable of feeling. I genuinely believed I wouldn't love anyone like that again. Maybe that's why I never noticed I was falling for her. I thought it was just an admiration at first. I thought maybe I just enjoyed talking to her. I thought those feelings would eventually disappear if I ignored them long enough. They didn't. Instead, every conversation made me want to know her more. Every little detail she shared somehow became important to me. I would catch myself smiling while reading her messages. I would look forward to hearing about her day. I wanted to know what made her laugh, what kept her awake at night, what kind of future she imagined for herself. I wasn't just interested in her life, I was interested in who she was as a person. Somewhere between all those conversations, admiration quietly became love. I was interested in who she was as a person. Somewhere between all those conversations, admiration quietly became love. And the strange thing is, I knew, I knew, I knew from the very beginning that we probably wouldn't work. I knew that there were reasons why we couldn't become more than what we already were. Maybe it was the distance, maybe it was the timing, maybe it was simply being life. Whatever it was, I already knew. But I chose to stay blind anyway, because sometimes the heart is selfish. Because sometimes the heart is selfish in the quietest ways. It knows the truth, but it keeps hoping the truth will somehow change. When I finally told her how I felt, I wasn't expecting everything to magically work out. I wasn't confessing because I thought she would suddenly love me back. Deep down I already knew what the answer would probably be. I think I only wanted to stop lying to myself. I wanted her to know, because pretending not to love her was becoming harder than loving her in silence. And after that, I convinced myself that friendship would be enough. I told myself that as long as she stayed in my life, I could live with the feeling. I thought loving someone didn't always have to mean being loved back in the same way. I thought asking for less would somehow allow me to keep her forever. Looking back now, I realize I wasn't choosing friendship because it was enough. I was choosing it because I couldn't imagine my life without her in it. I even started imagining things I never thought I would imagine with someone I had never met in person. I would just picture what it would be like if life somehow brought us together. We would joke about random things, about future, about getting cats someday. There were small conversations, probably meaningless to anyone else, but to me, they became little piece of a future I would quietly build inside my head. I never told her how often I imagined that future. Maybe because I already knew it would probably never happen. And one thing I realize is that the hardest person to move on from isn't the one you spend the most time with. Sometimes it's the one who gave you just enough to imagine an entire future, but never enough to make any of it real. Fuck. They leave you in the morning, not only who they were, but also in the every version of life you quietly built around them. The conversation you thought you would still have, the morning you imagined, the cats you joked about having, and the ordinary moments that never got the chance to exist. Maybe that's why it's difficult to let go, because you're not only letting go of a person, you're also letting go of a future that, for a little while, felt possible. The strange thing is that we never really ended. There wasn't a fight, there wasn't a betrayal, there wasn't even a proper goodbye. One day, we just stopped talking, and somehow, I think that's the part that hurts the most, because when someone hurts you, at least you know what happened, you know what you're trying to heal from. But when nothing happens, you're wondering if there was something you could have done differently. If maybe another message would have changed everything. If maybe life simply got in the way. There was never a clear ending, only silence, and silence has a cruel way of making you replay every memory, searching for an answer that probably doesn't exist. And I still think about her sometimes. I will hear a song she would probably love. I will read something that reminds me of a conversation we would have. I will learn something new and instinctively think, I should send this to her. And then I remember I can't. What I miss isn't only her, it is a version of myself that existed when she was around. The version of me who always had someone to tell random stories to. The version of me who looked forward to notification because there was a chance they would be from her. She became part of my routine so naturally that losing her felt like losing a habit I had built my entire life around. And for a long time, I thought love meant finding a way to make someone stay. Now I think love asks for something much harder. It asks whether you can still love someone after they have chosen a life that no longer includes you. I don't have the right to ask her to stay. I never have the right to ask her to love me the way I loved her. All I can really do is quietly hope life has been kind to her. I hope she is happy. I hope she has found people who make her feel understood. I hope she still laughs at the little things. I hope the future she is living is everything she once dreamed about. And of course, there are still days when I wonder if we could have worked, if we had only tried. I think everyone who has ever loved someone carries a version of that question. Maybe in another lifetime we would meet at the right time, in the right place, with few reasons keeping us apart. Maybe we would have gotten those cats we joked about. Maybe we would have turned all those late night conversations into ordinary morning. But this isn't another life. This is the one we're living. And maybe my role in her story was never to stay. Maybe I was the only one meant to meet her, love her, learn from her, and eventually let her go. I still carry her with me, just differently now. Not with the hope that she will come back, but with gratitude that she once existed in my life at all. She reminded me that I could still love after convincing myself I couldn't. She changed the way I think, the way I see people, and maybe even the person I am today. Sometimes you really, sometimes you really can love someone quietly without needing them to stay. And maybe letting them, letting them go isn't the opposite of love. Maybe it's the purest love that it was real all along. Subscribe to Con's work. Thank you.